Before this episode begins, a short description of this growing up in Irish Boston in the 1940s podcast. Episode number 12, Weinstein's Fence. I grew up in the 40s and 50s when many people, including kids, raised pigeons on their three-decker roofs. All over Boston and other big northern cities, young people had pigeon coops built on roofs with perches and nest boxes and landing platforms and tough wire mesh to keep the predators away. Cats, rats, raccoons, hawks, and snakes are some of the pigeons' predators. Mickey Mickle, later to become a successful bookie, and I lived in the same three-decker. He on the third floor, me on the second. Some of our neighbors raised pigeons. Some types of pigeons raised nearby were tumblers, rollers, and Belgian racing pigeons. I think all of those were homing pigeons or what we call homers. When we were about 10 years old, Basil Iliopoulos, a pal who with his father had a pigeon coop on his roof, offered to give us 3 rollers, which were extra to their flock. Rollers are bred to do rapid backward somersaults and spin very fast while dropping 20 feet or more. They are usually flown in a flock and performed in a group. We wanted those rollers because we thought we could put on a flying show for our friends. Also, we could show off how rollers can be trained to return to the coop on the breeder's voice command. There are some folks who hate pigeons. Those people call them flying rats. I have recently seen on a pigeon fancier's website the following theory, quote, God devised pigeons as a means of punishment for man. Probably after the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, he wanted to make sure that people would never again feel comfortable enough in a city to repeat the sins committed there. And he created the pigeons as a means to make the city dwellers' lives more miserable as a constant reminder of their past sins, unquote. We never agreed with such pigeon theology or philosophy. In fact, we didn't agree with any philosophy. We were mutton-headed kids, for Pete's sake. So we decided to take the free birds that summer. Questions arose. Where do we put the coop? What do we use for wood and nails, etc.? What would our parents say about it? If we put it on our three-decker roof, would the landladies object? Could we build it without any adults knowing about it? Where would the money come from for the 50-pound bags of bird feed? Strategic questions for 2 meat-headed pre-adolescents to grapple with. We decided that we could acquire the nails and the black tar paper for waterproofing the coop from what we called the plaster yard, which was directly across Alston Street from our house. It was previously operated by the late Mr. Chapin, whose widow, an old recluse, lived in the house which fronted the former wholesale business. The defunct business was high-fenced, gated, and locked up, but there was still much inventory stored there. Bringing some scrap pieces of wood to the roof of our house to begin the coop, we were immediately shooed off by the spinster Riley sisters, our landladies who lived on the first floor. We then asked Mrs. Senecal, the almost senile cousin of the Rileys who lived next door, if we could put the coop in her backyard. She docilely agreed and would have agreed if we asked her to fly out her second-floor window. Unsuccessfully, we looked around the neighborhood for falling down buildings that we could strip. Then I remembered the Weinstein scrapyard located on River Street. They had just torn down their old rotted wood fence and replaced it with brand new wide pine board fence painted Kelly green. Our plan was to take their old fencing that we thought would still be behind their new fence. To get to the fence, we needed to take a shortcut through the vacant lot next door to Pellrine's yard and just across the street from our house. Unfortunately, the old wood had already been disposed of, so we began to look at the Weinstein's new fence lustfully. Should we rip boards from the new fence? Could we get away with it? When would we do it? After looking around unsuccessfully for other wood sources, we finally figured that Friday after dark would be the best time to strip Weinstein's fence. The business was closed on Saturday and Sunday, and no one could see what we were doing at night, and we had time on the weekend to build the coop. We had hammers, saws, and crowbars borrowed from our father's toolboxes. We then stripped enough planks from our Jewish patron to build the coop. We took some 2x4s also. Our coop was to be about 5 foot by 5 foot by 5 foot with a flat roof and cut down broomsticks inside for perches. We used orange crates for nesting boxes, and we built a window ledge-like platform for the birds. We also built a trap, which was a one-way device that lets birds into the coop but not out. We waterproofed the walls and roof with tar paper so the Kelly green paint couldn't be seen. We put newspapers on the floor of the coop to ease in cleaning the bird droppings. We built a feeding trough and used borrowed crockery bowls from home for watering the birds. We received all our advice on building the coop from our neighborhood bird fanciers. For a couple of non-trained larcenous meatheads, our finished pigeon coop looked pretty good. On Monday, we got our rollers and were given directions from Iliopolis on how to take care of them. One instruction I remember was that pigeons often got big cankers in their mouth. They would starve if the canker was not removed. The first aid procedure was brutal. We had one bird that had a mouth canker. Basil lit a wooden match, and Mickey held the bird while Basil, with a still hot but extinguished match, burned the canker from the bird's mouth. So after all that to do, we were very excited and ready to become roller pigeon experts. Tuesday afternoon, we were out at the coop, making like we knew what we were doing, when my father came home early from work, a very unusual occurrence. He came over to the fence between our yard and the Senecal's yard, our pigeon's location. He called me over to him, which I immediately did along with Mickey. I knew something bad was about to happen. He sternly asked about the source of the wood and the materials for the coop. He then asked where we got the birds. We gave him shuffling gobbledygook answers. He then left without saying much and walked out of the yard toward Weinstein's. We found out later that either the police or Mr. Weinstein reconnoitered around the neighborhood and found the just constructed wood coop and figured that's where their new fence went. I think it had to be Mr. Weinstein because the Cambridge cops were stupid and lazy. I think Dad spoke with Mickey's parents and arranged some repayment to Mr. Weinstein for the wood. There was a loud, but I think perfunctory parental criticism and punishment of both kids, and we were forced to give back the birds and tear down the coop and return the wood to Weinstein. Surprisingly, the punishment at home wasn't too bad. Rethinking it today, I think Dad and the other adults got a secret chuckle from our endeavors. And further thinking now, I wonder about the prevalent attitude our low-income neighbors and my parents had. That attitude was, it was almost, but not quite okay to steal from well-off people, insurance companies, or the government. We were two Catholic school kids strictly trained by the nuns, but somehow thou shalt not steal didn't seem to apply in this case. We never considered the moral factors, just the can we get away with it factors. Looking back, I know it was stealing, but it was generally winked at and didn't seem like theft to us then. Thank you for viewing or listening to my podcast episode. I really appreciate it. If you liked it, and if you so choose, I ask you to send a good review and perhaps refer friends who might be interested in this podcast series. Again, my thanks.